Hello children. So let us do some question answers of the chapter Our Environment. Here I'll be showing you the questions given in your book, both in text and those which are given at the end of the chapter. So I'll be discussing the probable answers and how they should be written, and afterwards you will complete them in your own language, but it should be scientifically and factually correct. So let us start. What are trophic levels? Give an example of a food chain and state different trophic levels in it. So, let us define trophic levels. Trophic levels are various steps of a food chain at which transfer of matter and energy takes place. So, if a food chain consists of 4 different organisms starting from producers till top consumer, as many levels are there, they all will constitute trophic levels. Now let us give an example of an aquatic ecosystem. So suppose there are shrimps and they are eating phytoplanktons. Now the shrimp is eaten by a fish and the fish is eaten by a crane. So we are starting from phytoplanktons, then shrimps, then fish, and then crane. So we can see that there are 4 trophic levels in such a food chain. So trophic levels are feeding levels, and those feeding levels represent different organisms which are eating some organism and they are also being eaten by another organism of a higher trophic level. Now, what is the role of decomposers in the ecosystem? So decomposers, as the name suggests, decompose various complex organic compounds into simpler inorganic compounds. And what do they get out of this? This is not a social service. No, decomposers break down those complex organic compounds to release energy which they utilize for themselves. But while doing so, they also help in nutrient recycling, because whatever inorganic compounds are formed, they are released in soil, air, and water, and that is how the nutrient recycling goes on and on. Also, unless decomposers decompose the dead material of plants and animal bodies, there will be no space for new life to establish itself. So all the dead material will start piling up and there will be a space problem. So decomposers are the environmental cleansers and they keep the environmental clean. They help in nutrient recycling, and during this process they derive some amount of energy for their own survival. What are some substances, why are some substances biodegradable and some are non-biodegradable? So remember, biodegradable substances are those which can be broken down into simpler compounds through microbes or microorganisms. Now, who are these microorganisms? They are decomposers. For example, some bacteria and some fungi. Now, those bacteria or fungi which degrade certain substances in a natural way, these substances should also be of natural origin. For example, leaf, for example, dead animal bodies, paper, wood, etc. And why they are able to do it? Because they contain particular enzymes to degrade those substances, and these substances are natural, those enzymes are natural in those decomposers. That's why this process is compatible. But non-biodegradable substances are man-made, and there are no natural microorganisms which contain those specific enzymes to degrade these kind of substances. So if there are no naturally occurring microorganisms with specific enzymes to degrade or break down these substances, they are going to remain as such, or they are going to persist in the environment, and that is why they are non biodegradable. They cannot be degraded in the nature by natural processes. Now next question, give any 2 ways in which biodegradable substances would affect the environment. So biodegradable substances affect the environment in following ways. First, they help in continuity of nutrient recycling. So whatever material is taken up by producers and they constitute their biomass, that biomass gets transferred through various trophic levels till the top consumer. But when the top consumer dies, its body is a biodegradable material and it will be broken down into simpler inorganic compounds. Various gases like ammonia, carbon dioxide, etc. will be released and they all become the part of natural biogeochemical cycle and are made available once again to the producers so that they can incorporate those inorganic compounds to perform photosynthesis. Now this is one way, and second is biodegradable compounds can be naturally decomposed, so they are environment friendly. They are not going to accumulate and cause a space problem. They are not going to accumulate in the higher trophic levels as in case of biomagnification. So they are environment friendly substances and that is how they affect the environment in a positive way. Now let us talk about some more questions. So give any two ways in which non-biodegradable substances would affect the environment. So here we should remember that non-biodegradable substances are going to persist, first thing, and second, they could also be the toxic or polluting substances. So first, they are toxic and they are also persisting. They are not going away anywhere. So there are various problems, but let us discuss two major problems. First, they will pile up and create a space problem in the environment. And second, if they enter the food chain, their concentration starts increasing at each trophic level and sometimes their concentration becomes so high in the higher trophic levels that it becomes detrimental to the overall health of those organisms which are at the higher trophic level, and this is known as biomagnification. And biomagnification affects the top consumer in the most hazardous way, and that is how non-biodegradable substances will affect the environment. Now, what is ozone and how does it affect any ecosystem? So, ozone is a triatomic oxygen molecule and it is a gas. So, ozone contains 3 atoms of oxygen and it is a gas. And ozone is naturally formed in the stratosphere of our atmosphere. Now, how it affects any ecosystem. So, ozone has the ability to prevent harmful UV radiations from reaching the earth. Now, what would have happened if UV radiations reached earth? That answers the second part of this question. So, if UV radiations are reaching on earth without any barrier in between, they can affect the productivity of ecosystems by causing various kinds of lethal mutations, because those UV radiations have the ability to cause changes in the DNA. And if we talk about other effects of UV radiation, then it causes cataract, it causes skin cancers. But if we are talking about ecosystem in particular, they most drastically affect the aquatic ecosystem because their UV radiations reduce the overall productivity of phytoplanktons. And remember, phytoplanktons are the producers of marine ecosystems. So if the producers are not there, their productivity is very low, then the entire ecosystem is going to collapse because any food chain starts from producers. So that is how ozone is a very protective layer and it ensures that all ecosystems on earth are running properly. Now, how can you help in reducing the problem of waste disposal? Give any two methods. So children, here I will just give you a hint. You can either remember the 3R approach or you can remember 5R approach, and you have to discuss any of those R's. So let us talk about reduce and recycle. So first way is to reduce your overall consumption. So if per person this habit of reducing the overall consumption of items is being maintained, then we will be producing less amount of waste. And second, whatever waste has been generated after all, because we have to depend upon certain items, then also we can recycle it. So something that cannot be used in its original form, suppose waste plastic, then we can recycle it into making tiles or making fuel or making cheap office stationery items. Somewhere where the quality of plastic is not of much concern, like food grade plastic is not required, then we can easily recycle it. Or paper can also be recycled to make newspapers, to make various kinds of examination sheets, etc. So there are various ways, but just keep in mind the 5R approach, and then you can mention any of them. Now, which of the following groups contain only biodegradable items? So this is a very easy multiple choice question. Let us look at the choices. So there are 4 choices. Look carefully, pause the video if you want to, and then choose the option. So now let us look at them. Grass, flowers, leather, all of biological origin. Grass, wood, plastic. This is man-made. Fruit peel, cake, lime juice. They are also all biodegradable. Cake, wood and grass. So here also we are seeing that the 3 groups contain only biodegradable items. A, C and D. Now, before answering such questions, don't be confused that in multiple choice questions, only one option has got to be correct. Pay attention to the language of your question. The question had already given you the liberty of groups. It was not group, but groups. So it should come to your mind that maybe there are more than one such groups. And that's how you will be able to answer this question. Grass, flower, leather, all are biodegradable. Fruit, peel, cake, lime juice, biodegradable. Cake, wood and grass, all are biodegradable except group B. So that is how you should be very attentive whenever you are reading your question paper. Do not answer in a hurry. Now next question. Which of the following constitutes a food chain? So let us see the choices here. Grass, wheat, mango. Grass, goat, human. Goat, cow, elephant. Grass, fish and goat. So here the correct option is option B. And let us discuss why other options were not true. Because producers cannot be at the higher level of a food chain. Mango is a tree and obviously a producer. Wheat is a plant, obviously a producer. Here all 3 are producers. But a food chain consists of producers, consumers and decomposers. Now, goat, cow, elephant. All 3 are herbivores. There are no producers and there are no carnivores. So how is this food chain going to sustain itself? Also, grass, fish and goat. So fish can neither eat grass, fish can neither eat goat, goat cannot eat fish. This is not a food chain. The only sequence where a possible food chain is visible is option B. Grass can be eaten by goat and goat is obviously eaten by humans. So next question. Which of the following are environment friendly practices? Carrying cloth bags to put purchases in while shopping, switching off unnecessary light and fans, walking to schools instead of getting your mother to drop you on her scooter, all of the above. So obviously all these 3 practices are very environment friendly, and that is why option D is correct. Now next question is, what will happen if we kill all the organisms in one trophic level? Now to answer this kind of question, you must pay attention to what exactly your question is asking. This question is asking in general. What if I am killing all the organism of any trophic level? It has not given you the liberty to choose whether producers were removed or primary consumers were removed, secondary or tertiary consumers were removed. So here you have to discuss from the point of view of every trophic level. So let us try to do that. So your answer should start with producers, obviously, because they constitute the first trophic level. So you will write that if the producers are removed, then the ecosystem will collapse, because in the absence of producers, any food chain cannot even start. If there is no production of biomass by photosynthesis, the food chain can not exist at all. Now let us move on to the second trophic level, which is of primary consumer or herbivores. So now if herbivores are removed, this effect should be discussed from the point of view of first trophic level as well as third trophic level, because you are removing all the second trophic level organisms. So if herbivores are removed, its immediate effect will be seen on third trophic level. So the secondary consumer which was dependent on herbivore, they will die first because they are not getting any food. But long-term effect will be also observed on the first trophic level, because in the absence of herbivores, there will be excessive growth of producers. Now some students confuse it and say that this is a good thing, greenery on earth will increase, but no, we have to look into long-term scenario. So if there are no herbivores and only producers are growing luxuriously, initially they will grow, but after some time there will be competition for all the resources: water, light, CO2. Also, if there are no more animals in the higher trophic levels, then they are not dying also, and then the decomposers are also not decomposing and releasing the simpler inorganic compound into the air and soil and water. So there will come a time when producers will feel the scarcity of all the raw materials, and slowly they will also die, and that is how the entire ecosystem will collapse. So remember, children, how you have to write the answer of such questions. That first you need to give the effect felt on the immediately affected trophic level. So any organism of a particular trophic level, if removed, its immediate effect will be felt on the higher trophic level, because they are not going to get their food. Now its long term effect will be felt on the lower trophic level population, and first that population will increase dramatically, but then due to scarcity of materials and huge competition, they will also perish, but slowly. So that is how this kind of question must be written in some detail and with due consideration. Now this question: will the impact of removing all the organisms in a trophic level be different for different trophic levels? Yes. एंड यहाँ यस लिख के नहीं छोड़ देना है आपको, आपको लिखना पड़ेगा कि हाउ that particular trophic level organism is going to affect the higher and the lower trophic levels. Whether it is your second trophic level, whether it is your third or fourth trophic level, you have to discuss and give example of each scenario. Now the second part of the question is asking, can the organisms of any trophic level be removed without causing any damage to the ecosystem? No. But once again, let me caution you, do not just leave your answer by writing no. No. You have to give justification even if that is asked in 1 marks category. So what will you write over there? Can the organisms of any trophic level be removed without causing any damage to the ecosystem? No, because every organism is a part of some food chain where it is related to the organisms of lower trophic level, as well as it is related to the organisms of higher trophic level. And if any link of food chain in between is broken or any organism is removed, it is going to affect both sides of that food chain. And just like removing one critical link of any chain, the chain breaks down, That is how the entire food chain will stop existing, and it will affect the ecosystem in long term. So it is not possible to remove any organism without causing substantial damage to the ecosystem. I hope these kind of answers are clear in your mind, that how they should be written and why students generally lose marks in such kind of questions, because they do not do justice to the answers that they write. Next one is, what is biological magnification? Will the levels of this magnification be different at different levels of the ecosystem? So, what is biological magnification? First, let us discuss that. So, biological magnification is the gradual increase in concentration of harmful, toxic, and non-biodegradable substances at each trophic level. And since its concentration is increasing with each trophic level, that is, it is magnifying, and that's why it is known as biological magnification. And obviously, the highest concentration of such toxic chemicals are always observed in the top consumer level or the highest trophic level. Now this answers the first part. Will the levels of this magnification be different at different levels? Of course. This is how the biological magnification works. First, some toxic, pollutant, or persisting substances enter the food chain. So their concentrations present at the producer level in the body of green plants or phytoplanktons will be lowest, and then its concentration in the body of second trophic level organisms will be a little higher, and then its concentration will be a little higher than the second trophic level in the third trophic level, and that is how its concentration will definitely be different in different levels. Now, what are the problems caused by non-biodegradable waste that we generate? So, non-biodegradable wastes are a big problem, and first thing is that they cannot be degraded, so they just accumulate, accumulate, and accumulate, and some of them can also enter the food chain. Nowadays, we are hearing that even microplastics are entering into the bodies of organisms, and not only the dissolved chemicals like DDT and residues of medicines, but now even microplastics are entering the food chain. So they can not only persist, but they are harmful, and once they enter the food chain, they are going to end up in the biomass of each organism of any given food chain. First thing. Second, once they enter the food chain, they get magnified at each trophic level. So biomagnification and its adverse effects have to be mentioned here. Third, since they are non-biodegradable, so they remain as such, and they do not help in the nutrient recycling, which is a very essential part of smooth running of any ecosystem. And fourth point, you can mention that since they keep accumulating and accumulating, they create space problems. And if we talk about plastics, then if a lot of plastic is dumped onto any area, the aeration of the soil below that dump is highly affected, and it also affects the microbial activity in that soil. So there are so many problems which are caused by non-biodegradable wastes that we generate, and to sum it up, we can also say that they pollute our atmosphere, they pollute our hydrosphere and lithosphere similarly. Now, if all the waste we generate is biodegradable, will this have no impact on the environment? So, once again, there are good and bad points about everything, and this is a very interesting question, and it is also frequently given or asked. So, we need to discuss this. So initially we get this rosy picture that everything is good with biodegradable waste. We can make compost and we can recycle the nutrients and it is naturally degradable. Those are the good points. But you should consider that what is the rate at which we are generating it and what is the rate at which the microorganisms can degrade it. There has to be a balance. So if we are generating too much of biodegradable waste also and there are not appropriate or optimum conditions and not enough number of microorganisms in that area to degrade it in a given amount of time, then it is going to create a lot of problems. So let us discuss those problems. If the waste generation is too much, then there will be lag or there will be a slower rate of decomposition. So the waste will remain as such, which will give rise to foul smell. It will also give rise to various new kind of pathogens, because if waste is occupying some space and it is not fully degraded, then it is a breeding ground for so many other pathogens and it is a very unpleasant sight. And if such kind of biodegradable waste in huge amounts is dumped into water bodies, then those microorganisms which are responsible for degrading it, they need a lot of oxygen to degrade it, and their requirement of oxygen becomes so high that the total amount of oxygen in water reduces, and once the oxygen in the water reduces, all other organisms start dying, and this mass destruction of life in any water body, whether it is a pond, whether it is a lake or river, this creates a major problem. So we should always consider that the waste we generate has to be in a controlled manner, because there is a capacity of the natural process, there is a certain rate at which natural processes take place, and if we are disturbing that fine balance between generation and degradation, then it will definitely create problems. So even biodegradable waste in excess amounts is not always a good thing. And then the last question: why is damage to the ozone layer a cause for concern? What steps are being taken to limit the damage? So first try to answer this. Why is damage to the ozone layer is a cause of concern? So here you have to first mention that ozone prevents UV radiations from reaching the earth. But then you have to give some detail about what are the drastically harmful effects of UV radiation, like skin cancer, DNA mutations, and phytoplankton reduced productivity, cataract kind of problems. And then this answers your first part of the question. But then what steps are being taken to limit this damage is, there can be two major steps mentioned here. First, you have to mention that it was decided by UNEP that we will limit our CFC emission to the 1986 levels. So whatever was the overall production of CFC all over the world in 1986, that level is going to be maintained. We are not going to exceed it. So now how are we going to make cooling units like air conditioner, refrigerators, etc.? So for that we need to find alternatives and promote those companies, those products which do not use CFCs. And the third approach that you can discuss is always one of the R's, the 5 R's. So you need to mention that we have to bring lifestyle level changes so that we are able to reduce the overall requirement of CFC and overall requirement of cooling devices. And for that we need to do holistic changes so that the environment can be better and climate change can be controlled. So that's how you have to be factually correct, and your effort in writing that answer should be very clear to the examiner. Do not write 2 pages without any substance for a 2 marks question, but write conceptually correct and crisp answers. So with this, I hope that was useful. Go through this video and complete your notes in a proper way, and please practice that how this question should be answered. Discuss with your friends, and that's how you will get better at it. So thank you so much.